The highest honor that the Senate of the University can confer upon an individual is an honorary doctorate. At the University of Manitoba, the criteria includes distinguished achievement in scholarship, the arts, or public service. Our honorary graduate this afternoon is Dr. Paul Henteleff. Four decades ago, Dr. Henteleff started an important conversation about a tough topic. As one of the first physicians in Canada to recognize the need for end-of-life care, he pioneered an honest, delicate way for doctors to speak with their patients about their needs, their wishes, their fears. During a long career as head of the palliative care unit at St. Boniface General Hospital, Dr. Henteleff came to realize many patients, as he says, didn't want to go down fighting an impossible fight. And so in the twilight years of his own life, he's become a supporter of physician-assisted death for those desperate to end their suffering when palliative measures fail. His courageous stance on this controversial issue is matched by his compassion, humility, and steadfast leadership. He has helped thousands of patients and their families and mentored a generation of caregivers who are inspired not only by his expertise, but by his dedication. The son of a prosperous entrepreneur and a doting nurse, Dr. Henteleff grew up in Stonewall, Manitoba. He was a happy Boy Scout, content to while away many hours making clay models and carving wood. Inspired by a sophisticated New York aunt, he dabbled in the arts and briefly studied sociology and philosophy, all of which would later influence his perspective on death and the dying. He always wanted to be a doctor. Pursuing medicine at the University of Manitoba, he won prizes and scholarships and the heart of a Dutch girl who had come to work for a year at the medical college. As he went about raising 6 children with his wife Nell, he settled into life as a family physician, working part-time with Dr. Jack MacDonnell, a pioneer in the field of geriatrics. Gradually, Dr. Henteleff moved into administration, helping design Manitoba's personal care home program that today cares for roughly 10,000 people across 130 facilities. In 1975, Dr. Henteleff joined the team at St. Boniface General Hospital, the first hospital in Canada to develop a program for patients nearing the end of their lives. He quickly became the unit's heart and soul. Never a religious man, he nonetheless developed a spirituality that saw life as a pilgrimage. And in exploring that journey, he collaborated on the first study of depression and suicidal thinking in terminal illness. This widely cited research urged us to see the dying as they are, not as we wish them to be. Dr. Henteleff focused on the human rather than the disease. He taught generations of students to do the same, advancing health policy while overseeing the palliative care system in Manitoba. Dr. Henteleff retired at 60, only to become the founding president of the Canadian Palliative Care Association and head of what is now Palliative Manitoba. He helped to shape the direction of progress of end-of-life care across Canada, earning international respect and accolades along the way. It is through his commitment that palliative care is a core service in our province's hospitals, helping about 1,300 patients each year, and it is through his leadership that Manitoba has a robust research program that is making an impact internationally. In his words, dying can be a pretty grim business, yet there's nothing somber about this newly remarried man who has brought light to his patients in their darkest hours. He's a scientist, physician, and administrator who has created a legacy of care. Mr. Chancellor, it is an honor to ask on behalf of the Senate of the University of Manitoba that you confer on Dr. Henteleff the degree of Doctor of Science, honoris causa.
By virtue of the authority vested in me as Chancellor of this university, I admit you to the degree Doctor of Science, honoris causa, with all the rights and privileges thereto appertaining. Congratulations, Dr. Henteleff.
Mr. Chancellor, Mr. President, distinguished guests, graduands, ladies and gentlemen, I will be speaking primarily to graduands. A lot of paper here, but I have a time limit, and it's written in very large font, so it isn't as formidable as it looks. 60 years ago, this spring, I was a happy, proud graduate just like you. Today, I'm being honored for my role in the introduction of palliative care here in Manitoba. Like you, I am proud and happy today. For you, it is a great step into independence. For me, it is a unique opportunity to testify to what I learned about medical practice in those 60 years. Fundamentally, two things. There are many different professions involved in health and illness. And secondly, every person is unique, both as they live and how they die. I'm going to speak separately of what I'll call multi-professional care and personal uniqueness. Then I will close with a perspective on the relationship between professional care providers and patients. First, interdisciplinary care. Today, I am being honored for the development of palliative care. It is common practice to attach honor to one person for what is really the work of many, many without whom the work could not have been accomplished. So today I have as my personal guests representatives of many disciplines who contributed to enriching care in the care of the dying here. Their contribution was not just getting work done, it was augmenting what biomedicine can offer, bringing to bear the conceptual frameworks and skills of their particular professions. Let me introduce these guests. I want us to recognize and honor them too for their essential contributions to developing palliative care in Manitoba. I'd like you to consider the many aspects of illness that they cover, aspects which extend well beyond biomedicine. I'm going to ask each of them to stand when I name them. Margaret Hurl, they're all over here. Margaret Hurl was home care coordinator, focused our attention on supporting patients and families at home, even though we were in a hospital facility. And that resulted in a policy to admit our patients directly from home, and that was a priority admission, so they didn't have to go through assessment in an emergency department, but could go directly to where they were known and could have supportive care immediately. Janet Banks was the head nurse in most of the years I was there. She set an expectation of cooperative teamwork for all the nurses and supervised the writing of all our symptom control protocols written in, I'll call it nursing language, which is based on symptoms and function. This meant that nurses could change dose, route of administration, even change drugs without the delay of having to call a doctor. That in turn means immediate response to the patient's needs. Elliot Fingerroad, a clinical pharmacist, used his knowledge of the equivalent effectiveness of different drugs and of their pharmacodynamics to create symptom control protocols, and he used his experience in community pharmacies to help patients anticipate the availability of drugs when they were discharged from hospital using their own particular drugstore. Fred Nelson a social worker who outlasted me by years in palliative care. He was able to draw patient, family, and staff into open discussion of concerns about their caring roles and about differing attitudes to the kinds of decisions and treatment choices that are being made, particularly in palliative care. Cornell Rempel, pastoral or spiritual care, able to help patients dealing with questions of the meaning of life and of life's values, but he also helped then us with our grasp of those values so that we were able to deal with the patient appropriately. The next two I'll introduce weren't part of the team, but had a big influence directly on me. Joe Kaufert, I think many of the students here will know Joe Kaufert, medical anthropology. Gave an insight into cultural and intercultural differences and on the interpersonal communication that emerges out of that and the kind of treatment decisions that are made. And finally, John Bond in human ecology, who helped support the academic and public attention to the role of palliative care and fatal illness. I cannot take credit for their contributions, but I can certainly rejoice that I could work with them. There were many others. They would exceed the number of guests I was allowed today. They would, in fact, outnumber the 100 and some graduates here today. Now, a few words about the uniqueness of every person. In medicine, we learn about what is common to humans: anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, etc., what is general about infection, trauma, neoplasia, and so on, about human development and mental illness. But in real life, there are as many unique configurations of all these ideas as there are persons. Consider the range of the following list. I'm going to start with something of minor importance, but very familiar, about the uniqueness of people. Some people can't tolerate caffeine. But more seriously, drugs have to be titrated for each individual. Some people have particular moral compunction about certain therapies. Some are more concerned about the impact of their illness and decisions on others than they are on themselves. There are people who fight for life and limb against all odds, and there are others who calmly accept disability, decline, and death when they see treatment as a burden and futile in their situation. Medicine must engage with these aspects of individuality, but many of these aspects are not central to medical education. For other disciplines, they are central. New medical graduates moving into more independent practice are entering a new arena. As students, you are answerable to teachers for what is central in medicine. As practitioners, you face patients who do not speak biomedical language, who bring all their uniqueness with them, unique reactions, capacities, responsibilities, values, fears, hopes, beliefs, and experiences. There are resources outside medicine, resources which can help patient and physician come to terms with individual needs and appropriate actions. Now, to conclude, I would say that all professional caregivers have a privileged, intimate access to human life, with its complexities of growth and development, its hopes and fears, joys and achievements, griefs, decline, and death. But besides privilege and special knowledge and skills, we can also bring common humanity. And I have a little list. We are all mortal. There are conditions which are irremediable. Knowledge is never complete. Hope, care, praying, healthy lifestyle can all help, but can also fail. Acknowledging our limits is necessary if there is to be solidarity between caregivers and patients. Graduates, go to your careers. Rejoice in what you are capable of doing and in how much more can be done collaboratively. Live honestly and humbly with life's real limitations.